is a 0% chance that you haven't seen the rainbow-haired menace to society known as 6ix9ine, one of the most notorious names of the entire new generation, and of course he had the numbers to back it up. But all of this being said is why it's so shocking that fans spotted his home being raided by the IRS and all of his most intimate personal belongings are being sold online, even down to his personal backpacks and the plaques for his very own songs. From a man who once made so much money that he could flex millions at a time without breaking a sweat, it really makes you wonder, where did it all go wrong? Well, the answer to this just might be back in 2017. That same year of him getting famous, he had to show up to court and was given 3 years of probation. Why? Because apparently in 2015, he was present at a house where a minor was filmed being SA'd. And of course, he was present in the video. They said, and I quote, 6ix9ine was standing behind the child and making a thrusting motion with his pelvis, smacking against her buttocks, while she was naked and engaging in oral with another man. Keep in mind, this girl was 13 years old. He then proceeded to repost that video on his social media and claimed to the police that he only did it to quote-unquote make his rapper image look cool. He also mentioned that when she walked in, she asked him how old he was, and he told her that he was 18 years old. He says the way that she asked made him think that she was older. He also claims that later the girl lied about her age and said that she was quote-unquote, I think 19, but there is a pretty big difference between 13 and 19, so I'm not sure how you get that confused. But we digress. When all of this information surfaced, 6ix9ine tried to minimize the situation, as we can see in an interview with DJ Academics, one of 6ix9ine's closest friends at this time, who tried very hard to defend him. Academics had this interview as a way of giving 6ix9ine a platform to tell his side of the story, and when he was asked about the girl, he was still trying to downplay the situation by saying that she was quote-unquote, I think 14 or something like that.
Was she actually 19?
No, she wasn't. She wasn't. I don't know her exact age. I think she was like 14 or some shit like that.
But clearly, no matter what he said in the interview, even if it affected public perception, that was not going to work legally, because after all of this, 6ix9ine was arrested. When his case was brought before the court, he ended up taking a plea deal and pleaded guilty. In interviews, he's tried to justify his guilty plea by saying that he only did it because he was scared.
Did you plead guilty? You pled guilty, right?
I pled guilty like this quick, blood.
Why?
I was scared, blood. I didn't have no money. I was poor.
But judging by the fact that he was quite literally in the video, and only God knows what happened after that camera was turned off, I just feel like the type of person to be in that situation, I wouldn't put it past them to be guilty of this kind of thing. Considering all of this happened before he even completely blew up, it's pretty hard to believe that he actually managed to get famous regardless of this, but he did. Despite everything, 6ix9ine continued his career and more controversies followed. The same controversies that would ultimately lead to his complete and utter downfall this year. Of course, I'm referring to when he started getting himself affiliated with gang members. In an effort to solidify his quote-unquote King of New York persona, 6ix9ine got heavily involved with gangs, which ultimately became the main reason for his career and financial issues. He was specifically tied to a subsection called the 9 Trey Bloods, and continuously tried to call out rival gangs and trash talk absolutely anybody he could, from Lil Durk to King Von to Chief Keef to pulling up to Obla and doing things that quite literally would have gotten anybody else killed. It was to the point that there were viral videos online questioning how 6ix9ine is not dead. But of course it worked, and his numbers went up as a result, as this was around the time when songs like Billy and KOODA and Stupid were going absolutely crazy in the hip-hop community. But of course, if you're going to make enemies 24/7, it's eventually gonna catch up to you. Some of his gang associates tried to rob members of an opposing record label, along with attempting to rob fellow artist Jay Prince, but instead they made a mistake and ended up robbing 2 random publicists instead. At this point, 6ix9ine had gone from making gimmick memes on the internet and started committing actual crimes outside of, you know, involving children. But it gets a lot darker when we later found out that 6ix9ine confirmed paid somebody a large sum of money to go after Chief Keef and murder him. The shooters found Chief Keef in public and let the fire go. Fortunately for everybody, the bullets missed and Chief Keef is still alive to tell the tale. First it was gimmicks, then it was robbing people, but now he has officially crossed the line into attempting to take human life. And and unfortunately, it only continues to get worse. On November 18, 2018, Tekashi 6ix9ine was famously arrested and charged with racketeering. Him and his crew were accused of armed robbery, conspiracy to commit murder, and the distribution of various drugs. Prosecutors even used lyrics from his songs like "Whole squad full of effing killers, I'm a killer too" as a way to show the character that he has and his extreme lack of remorse. With all the charges piled up, 6ix9ine was looking at almost 50 years behind bars. And when bro saw that, he said, never mind. And without an ounce of hesitation, he pleaded guilty and started to snitch. In front of the court of law, 6ix9ine pleaded guilty to joining the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods in November of 2017, stating that he participated in the gang's activities, including shootings, robberies, and drug trafficking. He admitted in front of everybody that he tried to have Chief Keef off, and that he apparently did it to try to quote-unquote elevate his status within the gang. He confessed to participating in an armed robbery in April of 2018, where he and other gang members stole property from a rival gang member. He admitted that he and his associates were involved in drug trafficking operations, including the distribution of heroin, fentanyl, and MDMA. And finally, he identified every single fellow gang member that was involved alongside him and detailed in great detail their involvement in various crimes. He also started to name other artists such as Jim Jones and even Cardi B for being affiliated with the Bloods gang. If you had information regarding anything in these cases, this man was about to call your name. And just like that, this man's sentence was reduced all the way from 50 years down to 2 years in prison, along with a light fine of $35K. 2 years, which by the way only turned into 6 months because in April of 2020, COVID-19 came around and he was able to use the fact that he has asthma to go home early, and it actually worked. And just like that, 6ix9ine was home free. But as I'm sure we all know, his life and career would never be the same again. As we said before, 6ix9ine was already on a speed run to burn every single bridge in the music industry. But this of course only got a million times worse when the whole snitching label came around. 6ix9ine was instantly labeled the black sheep of the rap industry by a lot of people, and almost no artist wanted to work with him. But surprisingly, his problems were not even close to being done there. In 2019, 6ix9ine's ex-girlfriend and the mother of his daughter, Sarah Molina, accused him of abuse during their relationship. She said that over their 7-year relationship, he had cheated on her repeatedly, given her STDs, punched, kicked, choked, severely beat, and apparently even raped her. 6ix9ine even admitted to some of this in an interview, stating that they apparently quote-unquote had physical fights. Some people may say that she was probably lying, but that doesn't really seem likely considering he was also accused of assaulting his next girlfriend. Yaleen Masvidal, also known as 6ix9ine's ex-girlfriend and also the ex-wife of popular Puerto Rican rapper Anuel AA, is a Dominican rapper and singer known for her work in the dembow and reggaeton areas. She alleges that he beat her, drugged her, SA'd her, emotionally abused her, that he stole from her, and after she broke up with him, he posted revenge porn of them on the internet. However, she herself is not exactly innocent, considering she was arrested in 2023 on charges including aggravated battery with a deadly weapon following an alleged assault on 6ix9ine outside of his home, with videos surfacing showing her damaging his car and striking him with a piece of wood. So this just seems like a case of two mutually crazy individuals. However, this is not about right or wrong. This is about why 6ix9ine had his downfall, and trust and believe when I say that this does not make him look good. 6ix9ine has also tried to fake his death, being accused of assaulting his own fans, including a 16-year-old that he choked out purely because he was trying to get a video of him in public, had several run-ins with the police for reckless behavior, was sued in 2020 by the same 13-year-old girl from all those years ago, who is now claiming that she was drugged and under the influence of alcohol at the time of the video and is now seeking damages. And he also even got into a massive fight at the airport that caused a major traffic jam. At this point, 6ix9ine had been arrested more times than you could possibly count. However, the reason he always felt was because he had the one thing that many people around him did not: money. But unfortunately for him, he had no idea that he was living in the last days of his wealth, and all of this was about to disappear. You see, after 6ix9ine was released from jail, he had a huge multi-million-dollar record deal lined up for him. Reason being that despite all of the controversies, bridges burned, and people that he's pissed off, the one thing that 6ix9ine had going for him was that people actually rocked with his music and found him entertaining. But unfortunately, after the hype of his first few releases like GOOBA and Trolls died down, many people stopped caring about 6ix9ine's social media antics. And it did not help that the quality of his music took a significant decline after this. Most people will tell you that even if they hated 6ix9ine, they have to admit that songs like GUMMO, KOODA, and Billy were straight fire. There is a reason those songs have close to 1 billion views. But once his album Tattletales dropped, it was just mid, and of course, it barely sold 53k first week, which is less than Ken Carson. And apparently, after all this, he dropped another album called Blackballed that before today, I didn't even know existed. And probably, neither did you. Like I said before, people stopped caring about his antics, and the clout era moved on to an era that didn't really care as much for Instagram drama. But even so, his music was decent. And now, he didn't even have that. As his listeners continued to decline, it makes sense to believe that his income would also follow, right? But remember, he's been rich for so many years and had so many hit songs, he has to have millions of dollars in the bank. I mean, he shows it daily, right? Well, this would have been true if it weren't for the fact that 6ix9ine had not made so many garbage and terrible decisions with his finances over the years that landed him in a heap of debt. A pile so deep that it led to one of the most embarrassing downfalls that we've ever seen in music history. In 2022, there were rumors about 6ix9ine struggling financially, with his manager Wack 100 saying, yeah, he broke as hell. That guy 6ix9ine ain't got nothing. Even saying that he ended up having to send him $20 for some gas. You see, 6ix9ine did mention in court that he was struggling to make ends meet, but this was probably just a tactic to get some lenience. However, apparently it was probably the truth, because around this time, he was also being sued for failing to pay tens of thousands of dollars in security fees. And his own lawyers were claiming that he owed them a lot too. At this point, 6ix9ine was completely desperate and willing to do absolutely anything to make money. This is where popular streamer Steve Will Do It and friend of 6ix9ine at the time came in to save the day. He revealed that 6ix9ine came to him as a friend, saying that he was broke and needed money, and so Steve hooked him up with a $2 million deal with the streaming service Rumble.
So what happened between you and 6ix9ine?
I got him a deal, right, to play video games
Rumble?
once a week for an hour.
Damn.
$2 million up front, and he just doesn't do it.
Crazy.
I mean, it's pretty much that simple. But it's the fact that he had no money at the time, and he needed money. He breaks up with his girlfriend, and he needs money to buy Birkin bags for all these black chicks and give away money to make his girlfriend jealous. That's literally like the factual story. I need money right now. I have no money, and I got to make my ex-girlfriend jealous by trying to with all her friends. That's what happened. And he just like, bro, he told the company, I need $2 million up front so I can buy a content house. Damn. And they believed him, dude. The guy's an idiot.
Of course, like Steve said, the deal was for $2 million, but because 6ix9ine did not fill his end of the bargain, he ended up owing them $2 million as well, adding to his massive pile of debt. And to make matters even worse, remember those two random publicists that got robbed by mistake by his gang members? They eventually spun the block and decided to sue him for $1 million because of that incident. After he saw that all of this was piling up and there was no way he was gonna be able to pay all this money, he openly said that he was gonna have to file for bankruptcy because quote unquote, I ain't got it right now. Keep in mind, this is also around the time he's flexing crazy stacks of money on the internet. And when the interviewer asked about this, he then responded again by saying, I ain't got it. That was just prop money. I ain't got it, bro. But the final straw that absolutely obliterated 6ix9ine's remaining shreds of money in his bank account was when 6ix9ine was in a strip club and apparently somebody in the crowd shouted something to disrespect him. They simply called him a rat. He got offended and in his impulsive rage took a random champagne bottle and threw it in the crowd after the person. Of course, it did not hit the intended person and ended up hitting a random stripper in the back of her head. This woman named Alexis ended up having to go to the ER and had to get staples to close the massive gaping wound in her head. This ended up with Alexis suing 6ix9ine for over $10 million. Of course, nothing is perfectly solidified in court and the lawyers always have a chance at working their their way around a lighter sentence or fine. But the problem is that when the trial came, 6ix9ine didn't even bother to show up for court, and so the judge now ordered that he formally and objectively without question has to pay her $10 million. And still, nearly 6 entire months after being ordered to pay by the court, the legal system, he still didn't do it. So the judge said, alright nigga, you wanna play this game? And appointed a receiver to go all the way down to 6ix9ine's house and liquidate every single one of his assets, including his house and his mansion, and sell off whatever was necessary to meet that $9.82 million. And I know this sounds like the worst thing on the list, but to make matters even worse, 6ix9ine throughout his entire career of being an artist and making all the millions of dollars that we've seen over the years, apparently this whole time had not once made a single report of his taxes to the IRS. I swear, you literally cannot make this up, with people saying that the owed sum amounted to over another $10 million. And if people have learned nothing from watching Game of Thrones, it's that the bank always collects what is owed. There is literally no escaping, and this is what happened when we all saw the feds raiding 6ix9ine's home and towing away every single one of his vehicles that he previously flexed so eagerly in front of us all. And of course, most embarrassingly, when the IRS went on to auction off all of his personal belongings online, including his iconic jewelry like his shark chain, his spinning chain, his rings, watches, earrings, and even his very own grills off of his mouth were up for sale on that website, including the plaques of his own songs. And I'm not gonna lie, it's one thing to fall off and it's another thing to blow your money on stupid stuff, but it's really so crazy to me that the majority of this debt is purely because of stupid decision making. If he in the split second of a moment had just not thrown a champagne bottle, he would be $10 million richer. And if he had just reported his taxes like a normal person, he wouldn't be in this mess. But of course, this man's track record has shown that he does not think before he acts. And I guess once your ego is on a certain level, some people genuinely believe that they are invincible. But like they always say, pride is what comes before the fall. And speaking of the fall, if you want to find out why Dave Blunt's career only has a few months left max, click the video on your screen right now. And as always, this matter has been decoded.